policies. For example, I'll give you a very real context. In Ghana, fintech had already started.
Right.
Ran for a couple of years before the Bank of Ghana launched the
interoperability.
And also recently passed the bill that governs how fintechs work.
Sure.
Like this is about like 5 years after the first payment platform was released. So the question now is, I know we need both of them, but what do we place more emphasis on to drive the kind of change we want to see in our country?
Okay, see, so I go back to that example that you cited with Henry Ford, right? Mm-hmm. So if after that, invention, there was no public sector response, that invention wouldn't have thrived or wouldn't have succeeded. Okay, I can agree that sometimes private sector inventions influence public sector policies. So you can have a government promulgate or formulate a policy based on an intervention that a private sector player makes.
Like Facebook.
So the private sector doesn't actually create the environment. They serve they stimulate and then sometimes complement the public sector policy promulgation process, because the public sector is actually seated in a room, doing their own research and analysis, put out a policy. The implementation of the policy brings out other nitty-gritties and the needed detail that, when attended to, will fine-tune the policy in itself. So normally the first stage of policy implementation is what we call the drawback or the feedback stage, because until you put out the policy, you don't know how it works.
But what guides you to first put out the policy? Something must trigger it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And most times
it's the new things that are started.
Policy is based on new development outcomes, expectations. Actually, you may not promulgate a policy or formulate a policy based on something that has happened or is happening, but something that you expect to happen.
Yeah.
Okay. So that
it tends to be on the minority side, because typically there are a lot of current issues that have to be dealt with in public sector. So people rarely have time to often want to. But I think the conversation was like both of them are very important and critical. But what I really wanted to now get into the cracks of, how do we, as young leaders, in the next 20, 30 years, we are going to, if culturally leadership does not change, and in Ghana particularly, it still follows the trend of you have to be in your 40s or 50s to hold political power, then I'm saying maybe in the next 20 or 30 years, when we now hold power, what are we going to do different? Or better still, to refine the question, now at our young age, in our communities where we have a sphere of influence, how do you and I'm an entrepreneur, tech entrepreneur, building technology, you are in the public space, influencing media and content. How do we work together to drive change, first in our communities, then in our regions, then in our country, then on our continent? Practically, how do you see? And I want to start here, what I think I can do, and you can tell me how practically within your space and your learning do you think we can help each other. So I started a platform called Grow For Me Africa. Grow For Me Africa is an agri-tech platform that connects sponsors to farmers who are looking for finances or funds to grow and expand their farms.
Right.
So we simply have a tech platform. You go and say, I want to start a pineapple farm. I want to do an acre, $500. You're in the diaspora, you pay. The money goes to a farmer to grow an extra 1 acre. And when he sells it, okay, you get your $500 plus 50% of the profit that he made. He gets 35% of the profit. Go For Me gets 15%. That's a simple business move. The power of this is now we will not have to then depend on a huge investment from IMF to push into our agricultural sector. We can have a lot of individuals. You can have if you have 100,000 individuals doing $500, it's just $50 million investment in our sector. So that's what we are looking at. How would you in your space facilitate this to be very scalable and effective? If with this plan, right, and you don't have, if he doesn't sell to you at good price, and you're always subject to his terms and agreement. I want to change that. That's why I want to increase production of farmers. How would public policy drive more of local production against more importation? And by the way, the powers that be may not want to necessarily stop that game. They still want to import because they make their money from it. But you understand that if we start producing locally, more jobs are created. The value addition allows us to even sell at higher price. We make more profit, and if we export, we show up more dollars. That affects economy positively. So tell me, in your experience during the Mandela Washington Fellowship, how do you think public policy can drive more local produced and enhanced products against more imports?
So, I've been very evasive towards people who feel like capitalism and protectionism are two different things. I mean, every capitalist economy would want to grow their industries, right? And so, if you pursue a protectionism policy, you are no less a capitalist. In fact, for me, I think you'll be more of a capitalist because, see, if your company is protected through a deliberate government protectionism policy, the assurance that you have that you're going to grow is high.
It's high, yeah.
So then, you see, that's where the problem is, you see. Because for me, and to answer your question, what public sector can do is to employ some protection policies for especially SMEs and small businesses. Not to have competing businesses actually from other parts of the continent or parts of the world, coming in. So that in the end we can have them scale up, grow.
But then how do we juxtapose this against the free trade continental agreement where we want to allow people to scale across the continent? Are we redefining the markets now to be not just Ghana but Africa?
Yes.
And hence the need for protection policies that will help my company to grow because I don't have competition in Ghana should be there or should be wiped away so that I can now compete on a Pan-African landscape? Like, how do we juxtapose the two?
So I was actually coming to the Free Trade Area Agreement because, fortunately for me, I moderated a session at the African Union in April about the Free Trade Area Agreement.
In Accra or
in Addis Ababa?
In Addis Ababa.
In the AU headquarters. So
congratulations, by the way. That's very, very interesting.
It was a privilege indeed to moderate that particular session. So
I'm sitting with a big man.
I have some further knowledge about this Free Trade Area Agreement.
Okay.
The concerns you have is what actually prevented Nigeria from signing almost over a year now.
But they're the guys who actually go into most of the markets to expand.
So now as we speak, they have signed the agreement. I'm sure you're aware.
Yeah, I am aware.
They have signed, and one of the reasons why they actually went ahead to sign is that now the AFCFTA Secretariat is going to be cited in Ghana.
Yes.
What the AU Commission on Trade and Industry has decided is that the industry, small businesses within the specific countries that have signed and ratified the AFTA would have some protection. There's some policies that is within the agreement now protecting these small businesses against dumping. There's anti-dumping policies within and clauses within the agreement.
So some of the people who are part of this conversation are not very technical and will not understand the term dumping. So you want to break it down?
Okay. So for example, Ghana produced
platform up and running and people beginning to sponsor farms. How would you, in the public sector, create the environment for me to try? I just want to make it as practical as possible.
Okay. So I'll carry on from your example. I mean, which is really laudable.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it.
So, you know that in Ghana, land ownership and administration is a big issue.
Right?
So that's one big problem I know that farmers face. So to make your invention successful, what the public sector can do is to now ensure that we have a seemingly less chaotic land administration project or process, and the land ownership becomes less problematic, especially for people who want to use it for farming purposes. Because in the end, we have, in fact, Ghana is largely an agrarian economy. We have close to 60% of the economy largely agricultural. then the reason why the contribution of agriculture sector to the GDP until just last year or two had not really been very encouraging is because we hadn't employed, such technology and other means of, expanding, farming. So for me, one, I think that the first thing that the public sector can do to make your work successful is to ensure that the land administration process is attended to and made very, very effective. I know that the European Union and some other donor agencies supported the Lands Commission in Ghana to start a lands administration project. I know it's been fraught with some challenges because the bureaucracy and the inefficiencies of the system sort of favor some people. Some people benefit from the inefficiencies of the system, and so you would have them resist change and ensure that they still have the weaknesses so they can benefit from it. So it's been a big problem,
So how will I benefit from these public system being put in place so that land is really clearly registered on a technology that says this part of land for this? So how will I benefit as by the way, the farmers, we don't own the farms like but the farmers own it, and we give them funds to expand. So how would that intervention in that public space benefit me directly? Do I need to care about it? Do I need to be involved?
Of course, you need to care. I mean, in the end, if the farmers don't have enough lands to expand, no matter how much investment you get, they cannot use the money for what it's intended for.
Great.
Right. So that's where you must actually be worried.
So it means that as an entrepreneur, we shouldn't just look at our entrepreneur sphere and our market opportunity and how to sell up. We should also influence policy.
Absolutely.
Because that's going to make or break us.
True. And that's why in Ghana, one of the things that I've seen over the period is that the Association of Ghana Industries, for example, and other private sector bodies have been very prominent in policy formulation.
Yeah.
And governments over the period and present have consulted private sector heavily in policy formulation. Previously, it wasn't the case where you have government just sitting in the office and put policies together and expect the private sector to just respond. Now, the policy consultative process has expanded, and what I've seen is that a lot more grassroots associations actually being consulted in policy.
That's a good point. I wanted to pick another discussion, and for me, this new topic I wanted to discuss is critical. It's critical to our future as a country, as a continent, and it's about building your own, buying your own. And that's how I call it. Build your own and buy your own. And I want to start off with the story. Tyler Perry was like, when everybody was complaining about Oscars not being given to black people, he was not part of those complaining. He went to build his own production studio in Atlanta, and now he can produce his own film, and he doesn't necessarily require anyone to give him an award, even though he won it. And the point is, you should own your thing.
True.
So our economies are heavily import-based, heavily. And once you become a buyer, you become dependent on the person you buy from. Your economy is dependent on the one selling to you.